In 2025, Muslims across the globe find themselves at a unique intersection of faith, identity, and modern challenges, and this intersection has created unprecedented levels of stress. The reality of the Muslim condition in this age is one that must be understood through the lens of both spirituality and the complexities of the modern world. Stress is no longer a matter of individual pressure. It has become a collective atmosphere in which the Muslim Ummah navigates its journey. To understand why Muslims in 2025 are stressed out, one must consider the multiple layers of reality, the spiritual expectations, the social pressures, the political turbulence, the economic instability, and the psychological demands of living in a hyper-connected world that constantly tests the limits of patience, endurance, and faith. One of the fundamental reasons is the constant pressure of identity. Muslims are expected to carry the legacy of faith that was revealed more than 1,400 years ago, while simultaneously existing within societies that are rapidly shifting towards secularism, consumerism, and relativism. The challenge of balancing religious obligations with worldly demands creates an ongoing conflict within the heart. A Muslim youth in 2025, for example, is not only expected to succeed academically and professionally, but also to navigate a digital landscape filled with distractions, temptations, and conflicting ideologies. They scroll through social media and see curated versions of success, beauty, and happiness, which silently whisper that their faith-based lifestyle is outdated or irrelevant. This silent war of the mind is perhaps one of the greatest reasons why stress levels are soaring. Faith requires stillness, reflection, and connection with Allah, but the world of 2025 thrives on speed, noise, and instant gratification. The heart pulls one way and society pulls the other, leaving many feeling fractured and exhausted. Another reason lies in the heavy political burdens placed upon Muslims. In 2025, the global Ummah continues to experience the effects of wars, displacement, and injustices. Muslims open the news and are reminded daily of the suffering in Gaza, Syria, Yemen, Kashmir, and other regions where oppression and instability still reign. Even those living far away in stable environments cannot escape the pain of their brothers and sisters, for the concept of Ummah is deeply rooted in Islamic consciousness. When one part of the body suffers, the whole body feels it. This empathy, while noble and spiritually profound, also creates stress because Muslims feel both the obligation to act and the helplessness of limited influence. The combination of compassion and inability becomes a heavy emotional burden, contributing to the stress of 2025. Muslims do not merely worry about their own survival, but carry within their hearts the struggles of an entire community scattered across the globe. Economically, many Muslims are struggling with the same issues the rest of the world is facing, but often with added complexities. Inflation, instability in global markets, technological disruption of jobs, and widening gaps between the wealthy and the poor are already stressful realities. For Muslims, however, there is also the question of halal income, ethical work, and balancing career ambition with spiritual integrity. A young professional may be offered lucrative opportunities in industries tied to interest, alcohol, or unethical practices, and rejecting such opportunities means losing financial growth. yet accepting them compromises spiritual integrity. This dilemma leads to immense stress because the pressure to provide for families, build stability, and prepare for the future collides with the responsibility of adhering to divine principles. The economic anxieties of 2025 are compounded by this constant tug-of war between dunya and akhira, between material comfort and spiritual accountability. The family structure, once considered a source of comfort and unity, has also become a site of stress. In many Muslim households, generational gaps are widening. Parents who were raised in more traditional environments find it difficult to understand the realities their children face in a hyper-digitalized, globalized society. At the same time, young Muslims often feel misunderstood, judged, or unsupported in their struggles. Marriage, which was once seen as a stabilizing force, is increasingly delayed due to financial expectations, cultural pressures, and changing attitudes toward commitment. The stress of loneliness, combined with the stress of high expectations, creates a heavy burden on Muslim youth. Even within marriages, stress manifests through economic pressures, communication breakdowns, and the influence of digital culture on relationships. Where the family once served as a refuge, in 2025, it often becomes another battlefield of expectations and disappointments. Spiritually, Muslims in 2025 are stressed out because of the widening gap between knowledge and practice. Access to Islamic knowledge has never been easier. Millions of lectures, books, articles, and fatwas are available at the click of a button. Yet, with this abundance comes confusion, contradiction, and even arrogance. Muslims are exposed to multiple opinions, each claiming to be the truth, and this overwhelms the heart and mind. Instead of clarity, many are left with doubts and uncertainties. Furthermore, the constant emphasis on productivity, achievement, and external success overshadows the need for spiritual tranquility. Prayer becomes rushed, Quran recitation becomes inconsistent, and remembrance of Allah becomes sidelined. This gap between what one knows they should be doing and what they are actually doing produces guilt, which, in turn, fuels stress. The awareness of falling short in worship while being consumed by worldly demands weighs heavily on the soul. Technology is another factor amplifying the stress of Muslims in 2025. While it has provided tools for connection and learning, it has also created a culture of comparison and distraction. Muslims find themselves competing with digital ideals that are not real, yet appear to be the standard. Social media portrays a version of success, beauty, and influence that is often unattainable, and Muslims who measure themselves against these illusions feel inadequate. Moreover, technology has blurred the line between private and public life. What once remained personal is now exposed, judged, and commented upon by strangers. For Muslims who hold dear the values of modesty, humility, and sincerity, this environment is suffocating. The constant exposure to fitna, the pressure to maintain appearances, and the inability to disconnect from the digital world all contribute to heightened stress. Another critical aspect is the leadership vacuum within the Ummah. Muslims in 2025 often feel directionless because the leaders they look up to, whether political, social, or spiritual, fail to embody the prophetic model of courage, wisdom, and sincerity. Political leaders are often seen as self-serving. Spiritual leaders sometimes fall into controversies, and community leaders struggle to unite diverse voices. This lack of inspiring and trustworthy leadership leaves many Muslims feeling abandoned. Leadership in Islam is supposed to guide people closer to Allah, provide justice, and create a vision of hope. Its absence creates a sense of despair, confusion, and insecurity, which magnifies stress. Cultural assimilation is also a source of stress for Muslims in 2025, particularly those living as minorities in the West. On one hand, they are expected to integrate into society, succeed professionally, and contribute to their nations. On the other hand, they are constantly reminded of their otherness through discrimination, Islamophobia, and stereotyping. This dual identity forces Muslims to constantly adjust their behavior, speech, and appearance to fit in while trying to remain authentic to their faith. The mental and emotional toll of switching identities, of hiding parts of oneself in certain spaces, is a constant source of stress. Even in Muslim majority countries, Western cultural influence is strong, creating a clash between traditional values and modern lifestyles. This cultural tug-of-war generates confusion, anxiety, and pressure to choose sides between tradition and modernity. On the psychological level, the taboo around mental health in many Muslim communities has worsened the problem. Although awareness is increasing, many Muslims in 2025 still hesitate to seek professional help due to stigma, cultural shame, or misconceptions about mental illness. They suffer silently, turning their struggles inward and allowing stress to accumulate. The lack of safe spaces to discuss anxiety, depression, or trauma leaves many isolated. Islam provides deep resources for healing through prayer, remembrance, and community, but the modern world's pace and fragmentation often prevent these resources from being utilized effectively. The absence of integrated approaches to mental and spiritual health keeps stress levels high. Another often overlooked cause is the pressure of responsibility that Muslims feel as carriers of the final message. Knowing that the Ummah is supposed to embody the last and complete guidance from Allah creates a sense of weight. Muslims are told that their conduct reflects their faith, that their success or failure represents Islam to the world. While this is a noble reminder, it can also create paralyzing pressure. Every mistake, every shortcoming feels magnified because it is tied to the reputation of the Ummah. This responsibility, instead of motivating, sometimes overwhelms, especially when individuals are already struggling with personal issues. The global narrative around success in 2025 is another contributor to stress. Success is often defined in terms of wealth, fame, physical beauty, or digital influence. For Muslims who are taught that success lies in pleasing Allah and striving for the akhirah, this definition creates dissonance. They are bombarded with images and stories that suggest they are failing because they are not living up to the materialistic ideals of society. Even those who achieve worldly success often feel empty because they sacrificed spiritual priorities along the way. This disconnect between external definitions of success and internal values of success creates constant dissatisfaction, leading to stress. Furthermore, the rapid pace of change in the world creates anxiety about the future. Muslims in 2025 live in a time of artificial intelligence, climate crises, shifting geopolitics, and uncertain economic futures, questions arise daily. What will happen to our jobs? What kind of world will our children inherit? How do we preserve faith in an age of uncertainty? This uncertainty fuels stress because it feels like the ground is constantly shifting beneath one's feet. Stability is a core human need, and its absence produces restlessness. Faith teaches trust in Allah's plan, but when everything around feels chaotic, holding onto that trust becomes a struggle. In addition to these macro issues, Muslims are stressed out in 2025 because of the very human desire for belonging and meaning. Many feel disconnected from their communities, their masajid, or their peers. The fast-paced world has eroded the sense of neighborhood, of gathering for worship, of collective learning. Virtual connections, while useful, cannot replace real human connection. This loneliness and isolation add another layer to stress. The human soul longs for companionship, mentorship, and community, and its absence creates emptiness. Finally, the stress of 2025 for Muslims is deeply tied to the gap between ideals and reality. Islam provides a vision of peace, justice, balance, and purpose. Yet, Muslims wake up to a world filled with injustice, imbalance, oppression, and aimlessness. Living in this contradiction creates spiritual fatigue. They know the path to peace is in following the Quran and Sunnah, but their daily realities pull them into chaos and distraction. The tension between what is and what should be produces a stress that is unique, painful, and constant.